Hey everyone, this is Living for the Weeknight, and on today's episode, I am with Will. Will is the founder of Outer Body Pop, which what was something which started as a radio show has now become London's first neuro-inclusive music event series. The idea here being that normal raving isn't always accessible for everyone with different needs, and this was something Will created where it could actually be catering towards people with different neurodiverse needs, as well as there being a focus on mental health and also catering to people with accessibility needs too. Really cool concept it is, something that we haven't seen in the world of music, which can be quite heavy and intense. And I'm glad Will's here championing something completely different and providing a space to people who need the space because everyone deserves to experience music at the end of the day. But yeah, really cool conversation with Will. I thoroughly enjoyed it. And yeah, if you're watching the video of this, you may notice after the intro's finished, my hair color is a different color once again, which is what happens every time because I record my intros at a different time to when I record the episode. Also, thank you once again to everyone who has been showing their continuing support for this podcast. Really appreciate it and couldn't do it without you all. If possible, if you have a moment, would appreciate it if you could follow on whatever platform you're listening or watching on, or also give a rating. But yeah, enjoy the episode. Okay, hey mate, how's it going? It's not like we've been talking already, and it's not like I make that joke every episode, but how are you?
Yeah, no, I'm good, thank you. I'm feeling like a tiny bit burnt out. To
Hmm.
immediately slip into the mental health subject, but it doesn't feel like a deep kind of burnout. I think it's like literally just like I just like exercised a couple of times in the last couple of days and didn't get quite enough sleep. So
Yeah,
a soft burnout.
I feel that just generally being busy and then also winter's coming, all these changes in life at the same time. I think everyone's kind of like,
Mm.
especially in London, going through it at the moment.
You were out this weekend, right?
Yeah, I was. I was Friday Pearson Sound at venue MOT, Saturday the
Mm.
cause because my mate Josie was creating a room, and then where was I Sunday? Somewhere. But yeah, busy
Was
times.
that the Halloween thing, right?
Yeah, that was the Halloween thing. It was pretty wicked to be honest. Like every time I go back to the cause, it just gets better and better.
Yeah, it's an adventure. There's such a crazy the we originally the original radio station for Out of Body Pop where when it back when it was a radio show was above the course back in Tottenham,
Yeah.
and so I've like watched it grow from like a kind of like a relatively small club with like like a couple of spaces to like lockdown ending, and like sometimes my show was on a Sunday night and I would go in and like there'd be times where and like the whole room would be shaking from the stuff underneath. And at the absolute peak, there was one time where there was this like a 5 space day festival going on, like 1,000 capacity going on while I was doing my show on a Sunday evening. It was crazy, and it was like I got to see this guy from a rap duo called Foreign Beggars. I got
Yep.
to watch him perform before my show. Then I went up and did my show, and while I was performing, this guy wandered into the studio. His name's Pavan. And yeah, I mean, he's foreign beggars aren't a thing anymore, sadly. But yeah, he just wanted into the studio because he wanted to like a little bit of privacy. And then I came out, offered him a glass of water, and once he'd settled down, he like came into the studio and was like, "Right, go on, give me the mic, let me do a little freestyle." And did a freestyle over some like lo-fi hip hop that I was playing.
Damn.
Yeah, it
That's
was so fun.
That's cool. You got Pavan from Foreign Beggars just to like randomly walk in and do a freestyle. Now that's wicked. I also think
It was
that's a
definitely like a life moment, a real life moment for me of
yeah,
being like, okay, yeah, this is special. This is something that I can this is something that I can offer to my younger self and be like, look, there you go. Okay, like things ain't so bad.
yeah. I think that's actually a great segue because you already mentioned a bit about yourself there. But go on, tell me, Will, who are you? What do you do for paid work and or regular work, as people call it? I don't even know what to call it anymore. The 9 to 5,
Hmm.
and what do you love doing outside of that? Give me a bit of information there.
So my name's Will. I have in my work. I'm 29 years old. In my working life, I have worked as a tour guide, a walking tour guide, and also a big red bus tour guide with the microphone back when that was a thing. I've also worked in pubs. I worked in the stockroom of the Oxford Circus Top Shop back when that was a thing. And then, yeah, I decided to try and get a job in qualitative research. Qualitative research, very sticky word, which is basically like the kind of the slightly more humanities-y, slightly more kind of like soft, kind of like conversational like side of market research, as opposed to the much bigger quantitative research.
Yeah.
Quantitative research, which is like statistics and massive surveys. So instead of surveying a few thousand people or a few hundred people, we'll talk to maybe 16, 24, 30 people, or maybe even less than that. And try and do some interesting stuff with them. I just someone recommended that I should do it because I'd also in my spare time I'd done a lot of music journalism, and they were like, "Look, you're interested in these things. You're not really that interested in adverts, but you're interested in the things that help you make an advert. So I think you might enjoy this." And I did enjoy it. However, having said that, I did decide to go into it. I got my first internship just before COVID hit, and so the internship then got delayed indefinitely. So it's been a real journey, and I spent a year and a half working in a research agency that was purely focused on finance, which I never would have expected, but it was actually quite nice in a lot of ways. It was a really lovely team. I then did a bit of research around kind of like media and tech in like a massive research corporation. Now I finally, after all this time, I finally am working in like a little edgy, independent, like progressive research agency, which has kind of been the plan the whole time. Only took me 4 years to get there. I work in this very, very cute, very progressive 4-day week research agency called The Mix. And I was just in the office just today. I just cycled home. And they're a really lovely team. Really, really sweet people, and also really ambitious as well. Those are really interesting. So that's what I do for work.
Okay, sweet.
Long ass answer.
I had a quick question. So, like regarding that, the research agency you're at now, and you described it as edgy. Kind of like, what sort of research are they conducting, and what do you think makes them edgy?
Yeah, I guess edgy is in the sense that like a lot of the senior people came from the world of design.
Yeah.
And I think they've got a balance of being kind of like pragmatic and realistic, whilst also being idealistic. So like one of the big taglines is that strategy is bullshit. And strategy is the whole thing that we do, right? But it's they're really kind of like clear about like how so much of the industry is kind of useless, and they really want to kind of be like useful and direct, and they're really focused on kind of making an impact and being kind of like listened to, and like not being kind of like ornamental, not just being a thing that kind of like gets done as part of the process, but actually, directing like strategy and stuff. And so they do all sorts of stuff in terms of like really thinking about how you deliver insights, like really trying to create like immersive experiences when you're delivering an insight. And, like, for example, one of the, I'm trying to think about what I can say or can't say, but like, just like really going, I've done some really interesting stuff. I'll say that much, for some quite like interesting companies. And it's a funny thing, the art of getting someone to understand something, it's like, let's just say we're not just doing like PowerPoint presentations, like that's part of it. But like ideally, the full thing is often really immersive, really developed. We have like a full creative team, and also like a team who will sometimes just come up with all sorts of strategic ideas and really flesh them out and show you what it would look like as like an actual advertising campaign. Yeah.
Might be too much information you can't divulge, but like, what sort of adverts would the company typically work on? Not that you have to give names, but just like an idea for the theme.
But yeah, I guess I mean one of the case studies that they like to talk about a bit was I've forgotten the name of the shoe brand. I literally forgot their shoes. Let's see if I can show you the shoe and see if you recognize the
Go
brand.
on.
I've got myself these to congratulate myself for getting this job. way more expensive than anything I'd usually buy for myself, and I've literally worn them like 3 times because I'm terrified of scuffing them.
Yeah.
Um, this one, do you recognise this band? It's the one that's got like the kind of like the tracks.
A6.
A6, yeah. They did like a whole project for like A6 and like and just like helped them like think about where they fit in the world of like trainers, what it is that runners actually want, and the campaigns that can work off that. So yeah, that's like an example.
That sounds really cool. That does actually like
Thank
sounds
you.
wicked. And I imagine in your job you get quite a lot of versatility with different campaigns you can do, different people you work with. Like super creative job. Love it. Love it. But yeah,
Thank you. Yeah, no, yeah, it is a really interesting thing. It's still hard work, you do have to work. I think this is the thing with agency life, right? As opposed to working in like like a working for like a company, like a brand. I feel like often agency life is like pretty, there are a lot of expectations on you, and you need to be willing to work really hard. But we're working. I think that the crucial thing is that you have this big principle in my team called a one high trust team, which is the idea that everyone has to be trusted, and everyone has to trust each other, and like everyone, there's no kind of like star player, right? Like everyone is. They compare it to like football, where in football it doesn't matter if you have a superstar like player in the team, like England's old team when they used to have David Beckham and stuff. I know nothing about football. This is literally just me repeating what
yeah,
they've
yeah,
shared. But that when they had like David Beckham and Wayne Rooney in the team, it was still a shit team. They did so much better once they had fewer celebrities, because it's like it doesn't matter if you've got these amazing players. It's all about the connections between everyone, and yeah, they're I'm really enthusiastic about this company. I believe in them. I think they're good people.
yeah. No, that and it's so true. It is. It's just like just every aspect of life, whether it is work or whether it's just anything else. It is all about the team in general. Like there's only so much you can do as an individual. So I like that. I've never actually worked anywhere where I've worked with so many good people in different industries, but I've never thought like this person is holding everything together. It's collective effort, even just like supporting each other through hard times as well on so many different levels. So yeah, that sounds cool. And I wanted to ask, so that's your day job. I already feel like I know quite a lot about you, about your adventures and like passions that you pursue outside of work. Because for context for the audience, we actually met like 7 years ago now at a rave, which is where I seem to meet everyone. But Rod had all night in motion in like when I just moved to like Bristol, and then we bumped into each other. What, almost a year ago in Hackney, I want to say, kind of like towards like Homerton, which was just a random surprise. Then it turned out you're in the
And we
key.
are vegan everything.
Yeah, yeah,
Wave.
wave. Yeah. Oh, that's what it stands for. Never knew
We
that.
are vegan everything.
We
Yeah.
are vegan everything. Yeah.
Bloody good food. Honestly, bloody good food. The big one in Hackney, like they've got some really really lovely big plates if you want to treat yourself, and it's just an amazing place. They've got all those amazing seats. Yeah, I need to go back there actually. I don't make the trip over that much these days.
Yeah, no, me neither. Because
Yeah, it's a beautiful part.
yeah, I used to live very close to there, but now that I live in Dalston, not so close. Close to the small one, but oh well. But
Yeah, and all the way over in Dalston. Yeah, we've got a cycle. I mean, I'm in Stoke Newington myself, and yeah, so I've got the cycling. The 10-minute cycle to Hackney would be. It's just too much to consider.
yeah, exactly. But yeah, so what I wanted to ask you was, so I know a bit about your project Out of Body Pop. I kind of want you to kind of explain what is it, and then just tell us the journey of how it got started or how you got there, and then how it's changed over time.
No, I've been talking a lot about Out of Body Pop this year because we've been really, really pushing it. Like I got awarded some Arts Council funding, and a lot of what I wanted the funding for was to help work out how to talk about it and how to sharpen the story. Because honestly, the story is so long.
Yeah,
It is so long. I mean, Whistle Stop Tour. I started a radio show in university called Out of Body Pop, based on the music that I loved and also the philosophy that I was interested in. That was back in Edinburgh in 2016. And then I got more into music journalism. That's where I met the Loose, and I started doing a lot of music journalism with this crew called Loose Lips. Developed a bit of a community through there. Developed this new music format, journalism format. Then lockdown came. Sit down events were really depressing in the Eat Out to Help Out era. You had these kind of. So I'm just going to pour myself some kombucha.
Oh, do it.
Talking of lockdown habits. It was that August kind of like 2020 era when you could go to a pub and sit down and be kind of near a DJ. I went to see Sherelle and LCY play, and they got given cards by the venue saying, "Please don't play bangers." And like literally, like, they were talking to me and they were like, "All that we play is bangers." I have no idea what was really expecting from us, and it was just like, I had a nice time at that event. I got to see my friends, and we enjoyed a bit of the good life there. But still, like, I was like, "Damn, this is actually so depressing that this is what's available to us." So. I organised an event trying to make the best of the constraints that we had around us, where we had DJs responding to, DJs doing sets on their own themes, and then painters live responding in the moment, kind of based off some of the music journalism format that I developed before then.
Yeah.
And and they went really, really well. And what was really cool was that we had these spare paints, and some of the really cool people who were at the event, like people who were friends with like the coolest DJs, they were sat there towards the end of the event using the spare paint tools, painting themselves. And, I was like, oh, wow, you can't dance, but you can paint and express yourself through that. What a treat, especially to amazing music. And it was also such a great way to listen to music, I think, while painting. I think I was doing a bit of it myself. That's really where I came up with the idea in lockdown, kind of getting those emotions out. And then lockdown ended, and I went back to the clubs, and I personally felt quite confused and disappointed by what I found there. There were cases, I saw some quite serious cases of overcrowding, sometimes illegally so, and also just like musically, the sounds that were popular were not really my thing. Aesthetically and also like philosophically, I felt like there was a lot of stuff that was kind of retro, whether it was going back to, whether it was kind of like the pop of our youth or the kind of the house and techno of our our like cool older siblings youths. I felt like this is not really what I wanted to hear the music of now, and it wasn't really hitting the spots that I wanted. So I created an event that was what I wanted, basically. And I was thinking a lot about mental health. And then, to just finish this whistle stop tour, I'm trying to do it as fast as possible to demonstrate how long the story is.
Yeah.
This is me cutting corners. But it went really nicely. We've now done 4 of them now. And throughout the process, I've been working out what it is. And I've discovered that I'm neurodivergent. And when I say discovered, it's not, I've always known that I was dyspraxic.
Yeah.
And it's had a massive impact on my life in various ways. But I only discovered through this job, through the Mix, shout out the Mix, and shout out my team leader, Emily Chapman. She got these neuro-diverse experts to come into the team and give us a presentation on how to be neuro-inclusive. I discovered that dyspraxia falls within the neurodiversity umbrella. And I was working out how to discuss the event and, talking about being like, oh, is it a queer event? It kind of is. It's kind of not, though. I don't really feel like I can own that. This amazing PR agent who I've been working with named Alex Carroll, she's got experience working with Pussy Palace. She suggested that we call it London's first neuro-inclusive music event series.
Awesome.
And we called it that. And other than one person, no one's called me out on it. And it looks like, in a sense, we're correct. Like in maybe it will turn out that there's some other event that I'm not aware of that's doing what we're doing. But in the sense of actively including people, not just representing people, but like actively including people and trying to create an environment where it's relatively easy for neurodiverse and all sorts of different people to be actively included. It seems like we're doing that. It seems like we're the first one to do it. in the city, and I do think it is an important thing. I do really believe in it. So yeah, that's kind of what it is. That's what a lot of the journey we've been on recently is. Then working out like, okay, if we're saying that, how do we now make sure we're definitely living up to it, and what does that look like next? And just to put a little bow on it, a few months after the first Outer Body Pop, I now know that a few months after that one, another amazing neuro-inclusive event began in England called Disco Neurotico, and they do it in a totally different way, and in many ways, like that, they're pushing the format even further than we are, and it's really, really cool. But they're actually doing it in a totally different and separate way. They're actually I think they're ready to handle people, or to cater to people whose neurodiversity is more extreme. People who struggle more intensely with like sensory overwhelm and stuff. But yeah, I've been talking with them, and they're really, really cool, and I'm really hoping to see more of these other events popping up. And yeah, it's exciting time. Yeah, we just had a piece in the Guardian written about us, about my event at Disco Neurotico, with a big photo of myself as the front image at the top of the page. So yeah, it's really feels like things are moving right now, which is cool.
That's so cool, and I've wrote down so many questions. There's a lot to ask here, but that was a very good whistle stop tour. I feel like in terms of a start to finish, knowing how you started, how you got to the place you did, vision, future, where you're at, really good. Good job. So I guess where I wanted to start with, and I think you kind of maybe alluded to it, but when you were talking originally about, I guess, your radio show, you said that you wanted it to align with the philosophy you're interested in. I just wanted to take a step back and ask what that philosophy is.
It's called phenomenology. It was an area of philosophy that I studied. I mean, my favorite area of philosophy is existentialism, specifically the roots of it from this philosopher called Kierkegaard. And I think that Out of Body Pop actually is quite existentialist in that it's about being like, all right, let's start again. Let's get rid of a lot of the stuff that we've accepted and kind of start afresh, which I think is a lot of what existentialism is about. But Out of Body Pop, the name and the aesthetic came from phenomenology, which is a different kind of philosophy, which is about trying to build up a science. If you think about science as like a system of beliefs, or a way of understanding the world, phenomenology was a way of doing this without making any reference to like empirical truths, to like measuring things and kind of like trying to kind of like write things down, take photos, measure stuff, etc. Because all that stuff might not be real, right?
Yeah.
Think about like what was his name? God, philosophy tutors rolling in their grave. What was the name? I think, therefore I am. If go back to that philosophical maxim, which is a really big thing in the type of philosophy that I was learning. It's like, if all that you know is that you think, then also your thoughts must exist too, right? Like there are thoughts there, and so it's like, okay, whatever those thoughts are referring to, whether you're a brain in a vat or a real human being or not, those thoughts can be analyzed, and you can try and build up some kind of like system of knowledge through just looking at those thoughts. And the reason why that's relevant to music for me, and the music that I love, is that the way that music used to be recorded was all about recording a performance, and then when you listen back to the music, you get the sense of that you're in the room with the band, and you get to hear them, you get the sense of like, oh, it's as good as seeing them live, right?
Yeah.
Whereas a lot of the music that I love, a lot of modern music, is not about that at all, and actually it's pushing technology to create totally different experiences. Music that feels like it has its own existence, and rather than giving you the feeling of maybe listening to a band, maybe you're guessing the feeling of listening to an emotion, or putting yourself inside someone else's head, or maybe even just something that's purely abstract. Kind of like a painting that's not directly referential, but is powerful and intense in a different way, and you just have to react to it without trying to question like what actually you're seeing.
Yeah.
I love music that does that, and I think a lot of modern music, including a lot of modern pop music, Like, I was just listening to Positions by Ariana Grande today, had it on in the office. I think it's an amazing track. The production on it is crazy. It's a beautiful song. Like, yeah, I love a lot of that stuff. And 2016, when I started that show, like Frank Ocean's Blonde had come out. I was already a massive fan of him, but obviously that album was crazy. And I was listening to a bit of him, Fortet, Floating Points, FK Twigs, that kind of stuff. Some, really amazing pop music that has those kind of grounding elements of pop, but also is a bit out of body and
Yeah.
out there. But yeah, but out of body pop phenomenology, it's like out of body looking back at experiences, looking back at the things rather than being purely just like classic, I arrived in the party, that kind of vibe.
Nice, nice. I like, yeah, there's a link to the name there because that was going to be one of my questions as well. And yeah, you answered that really well. I like that because I can find philosophy quite hard to understand sometimes, I'm not going to lie. But yeah, that's really
Me
cool.
too.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
think it's like and that's the way I feel about all sorts of things, in that I'm really interested in accessibility. I don't just mean like in terms of access, but I mean like literally like physical access. But I mean literally I love it when something is really really thoughtful, but it's also working really hard to be understood, and
Yeah.
it really is just, that's what I love about pop music. I also love it. I love like a good like sitcom. I love like good comedies or stuff. I loved like the Barbie movie last year. That's like one of my favorite films. Like because it's really deep. It's a really deep, thoughtful film, and it has so much to say about life. Regardless of who you are, that film has something for you. But it's also like just like a fun, accessible film, and it's all kind of like fits together nicely.
Nice, nice. I like that. I'm seeing a lot of influence in your life already in terms of you clearly think a lot about things you see and things you react to. And am I right in saying you just use that to draw to your experience in terms of your creative projects that you're working on?
Yeah, I think so. I think my creative projects, a lot of it is just about me looking at things and thinking about what I want and how I would like things to be, and sometimes like there'll be often, I mean, this is the case for me with music journalism, and it was the case for me with organizing parties, where in both cases I've had really beautiful positive experiences growing up with them. I used to read The Enemy every single week. I loved it. And in terms of clubbing, I used to go out clubbing all the time, and I loved it. And it's like, so I'm not trying to get rid of that stuff. I'm not here, but just because I'm developing a new format, it's not me. It's my way. I'm not trying to say that what's come before is shit. It's just that things have changed, and the world has changed, and our needs have changed. And I think that applies well to music journalism and to music parties as well. And I really think that, yeah, it's, for me, it seems, and maybe it's because I studied philosophy and social anthropology, that just that's the way I kind of look at things. I just look at things and I just think, does this make sense? And if it's not working, why is that? What is going on beyond the kind of the basic kind of reactions and like desires that we have? Like why is it? What is like kind of like hiding in plain view?
Yeah. No.
I was hearing myself saying this stuff out loud. So what happens when you have a couple of glasses of kombucha on a Tuesday night? Things
Oh, school
start to
night.
get a bit crazy.
Yeah. It's no, but you're so right about that. Like things are always changing over time, and that can really be linked to state of affairs in the world, like emotions, things we're going through. Like I, when you were talking about that, I thought about like rave culture, how that started, and how it was a place for oppressed people, whether it was racially oppressed or people oppressed for their sexuality or their gender or disabilities. It kind of came out of a time and place where it was needed, and that can kind of give more reason to why it came about when it did, rather than coming about in, I don't know, the 1920s or something a bit earlier.
And I'm so inspired by like, I did my dissertation on dance music, and like I wrote a lot about Detroit techno. I love that stuff. I love Chicago house. Before I wrote my dissertation, I read one of my favorite books is called Dancer from the Dance, by Andrew Holleran. I mean, that's actually set in New York, but like the scene it's talking about is where house music comes from. I love all that stuff. And then moving forwards in time to like 90s UK rave, enormously inspired by it, like that aesthetically and like just like at like a more like personal level, like living in this country that we're in
Mm.
and seeing like the kind of the just like really wishing that we could kind of like live those 90s years and see the kind of racial integration that we saw at music events there, which is it's kind of never really been done beforehand and never really been done since. The kind of levels of integration that happened with 90s rave, it's a really beautiful and amazing thing. um and I find it quite sad then going to events that are like themed around 90s rave, but it's
Yeah.
all like white hipsters.
Yep.
It feels like I'm like, yeah, like the music is good and the music was good, but it's like there's yeah, it's you got to try and look at the spirit of what was happening at a really abstract level. I think if you want to follow on from that stuff.
Ab- Absolutely, absolutely. I do feel like no matter kind of how music goes or even things we see, it is quite easy though to compare and say it was better at the start. But I guess the start's always going to be
Mm.
special. I've just been recently trying to think
Mm.
about what is it in life now what we're experiencing the peak of that people might say, in
Mm.
10, 15 years time, it was better back then.
What is that for you?
It's hard. I don't know. I feel like maybe because I've been, raving for what now, 12 years. I've seen a bit of
Mm.
evolution in raving, even in those years. Where, for example, just certain genres I used to go to, I'd be like the only person of color there, and
Mm.
seeing that change over time, seeing more people express queerness at raves, more people being their self,
Mm.
more inclusivity, say for trans people. I think that's been really beautiful as well to see, especially in spaces like the Unfold Party at Fold, which is like an incredibly
Mm.
beautiful event. Yeah, it's like to see something like that now where quite often I always thought it as well, like 90s raving, can't imagine how that looked, like the euphoria, especially in a time of even more oppression back then than now. But then when I go to like Unfold, it's like so beautiful. I can imagine 10 years time, like
Mm.
if things are improving in other aspects as well and other raves, maybe I'll look back at that and feel like, wow, that was just wicked to be part of it.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, Unfold is amazing. I went there recently and I loved it. And I definitely think also in terms of the London clubbing scene, like it is amazing what's happening in terms of the like a lot of the intersectional collectives that are
Hmm.
doing stuff like Pussy Palace, or I went to a Pussy Palace / Daytimers event at Earth last year.
Yeah.
um and it was just, yeah, a really cool, really amazing and really interesting kind of like cross section of different kind of communities and stuff. um yeah, I think it's really interesting. I mean, it's still quite young. I guess that's the thing, is that they're still kind of like there's a I feel like for me where we are at culture right now is I still feel like we're still recovering from COVID.
Hmm.
That's part of the reason why I feel this thing of, and that's where I think a lot of my issues are. I don't really have any issues with the people organizing events at this point right now. I think a lot of them are amazing, apart from people who illegally go over capacity, where I think that's irresponsible and you
Yeah.
shouldn't do it. and
Yeah.
I find it very disappointing. And if I were to start going to Broadwick Live and Printworks and all that stuff and this whole thing, but yeah, just think a lot of it is just we're in a difficult time financially and culturally, and where I think things are kind of being broken back down and reforming. And God, I mean, imagine what a Pussy Palace event will be like in 5 years, right? Like, I'm
Yeah.
so excited to see it. I mean, they're a bad example because I feel like they've already done kind of what they set out to do, and they've done it amazingly. Like, it'll just be really interesting to see what like their legacy is, and other parties are inspired by them. Oh, my recording has just suddenly stopped.
It's all good.
Done. So I tried to fucking, so one sec, stop. Okay, I'm gonna start recording again.
That's fine. I
Recording,
can cut this part out.
clap, recording again. Um, Sorry, I had an alarm to remind me to bring a Tupperware, which is the right size, to the office tomorrow, so I can take my yogurt back home.
Sweet, sweet.
to give you a sense of what kind of person I am.
Nice.
Yeah,
Could we do another clap for the sequence?
yeah,
Yeah. Okay.
sure, yeah, let's do that.
All right. 3, 2, 1. Perfect. Cheers for that. But yeah, kind of going back to what you were speaking about. I admit I could talk about this for ages. I could talk about Pussy Palace for a while and all this other stuff. It did make me think. Like one thing that I appreciate right now is it's just been nice to see people who aren't cis men getting more of a moment in the music industry. Like it's not
Mm.
perfect, but it's got so much better. Like to see in like the bass scene, for example, so many cool people who fall outside of the old bracket of who DJs were and even who the fans
Yeah.
were, and just seeing the DJs change, the crowd shift. It's that's been like really beautiful as well.
Yeah. And
But
I want to see more of those people. I guess like if you look at where like Jotty is right now, I'm looking forward to, maybe that's kind of what I mean by legacy is I'm looking forward to, because we've got so many of these amazing DJs at the kind of like mixtress level of
yeah,
popularity where like they can play like a decent sized venue, and it's cool, but like it's there's still, in terms of like the massive venues, your warehouse projects, so you're still sometimes getting a lot of events where you're still getting headlined by like your Joy Orbisons, your Floating Points, your Fortats, your Daphnes, like all great people, but all straight white men,
yeah,
with the exception of Fortat. It's But like that's Jossie is so cool for that. Like I love that she's like become like a bona fide superstar and is like genuinely musically super interesting,
yeah.
super original, like yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing hopefully some more people like them, and I want to see them going out and doing like fucking massive residencies in Ibiza and being superstars, and your Honey Dijons, etc., that kind of stuff. I'm excited to hear more of those.
Definitely. So like
He
another.
says the white dude sitting in his bedroom talking about DJs, being like, "Yes, more of those, please."
But yeah, so I kind of wanted to ask you like a few other things as well. So before, when you're talking about like the journalism you did for Loose Lips, you said that it was like a new format. What did you mean by that?
Yeah, it was called Deep Cuts. Was the format that I developed, and it was about. I felt at the time, and I think this has got a lot better since then. Crack magazine being a good example, where if you read a magazine now, the format is like they've switched it up a lot in recent years. Like Resident Advisor got rid of like having numbered reviews, but Crack magazine has got like they just don't have like a traditional review section anymore. And yeah, they've had some really amazing writers who I really love, writing consistently with them. Recently, shout out to Emma Garland. She's amazing. She's my favorite. Uh, but I felt like back when I finished university and I was going back into it. Bear in mind, the Enemy had kind of gone at this point, and there are a lot of problems with the Enemy, but at least it was kind of fun to read. And I felt like a lot of music had become journalism had become a bit serious and a bit kind of like up its own arse, and overly objective. I think that's the thing. I mean, the Enemy also had this problem as well. They also definitely like would write as if they knew what was good and what was bad, but at least they were doing it with a bit of kind of like color and kind of pizzazz and silliness and kind of humor. Whereas like it felt like a lot of stuff was just a bit kind of like dry and almost kind of like pseudo academic.
Yeah,
I felt like you were getting a lot of kind of like articles which felt like they were kind of like third year philosophy essays. But like without the philosophy, like yeah, very strange times, not the best times. And yeah, I just wanted to encourage people to write in their own voice, basically. Like that was the point of it, was that I wanted to, because I thought that would be way more fun. So Deep Cuts was the format was that you'd get people to for each article we'd have a theme. For example, wordless tone, and a prompt question. For example, for wordless tone, I think it was when does music speak clearly to you without words?
yeah,
And then we'd get people to. I'd get a variety of different people to respond to that question, and the rule was that you have to respond to it in writing, and then also share some music that you love through that response in some way. I mean, you could do it abstractly if you want. You could just like answer the question, and then just share a song at the end, or you could literally talk about the song and the response. And then we just put them all together, and then we'd also make a DJ mix, gathering music from each of the contributions, so you can kind of listen through it whilst also kind of like reading the article. And we had an original artwork created for each of the by this amazing artist called Trav, or Back Down Trav on Instagram. It's a really crazy, amazing kind of like yoga Yoda-esque dude. Um, yeah, it was a lot of fun. And in contrast to my research career, the deep cuts was fed so nicely by lockdown. We just got the ball rolling around the same time that I'd also just been like applying for my first internships in the
Yeah.
research. And the exact opposite flip side happened to us. Suddenly people had so much free time and so much. And so the amount of stuff, I mean, I'm just working on like a magazine now, kind of gathering articles. And I was literally editing the Word document, and it's like 100 pages long, and that's like it edited down. Like that was us just like selecting like a few of the articles from within it. I say a few, still, it's a lot of articles, but just to give a sense of just how much stuff we put out in that time. It was really crazy.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's
and some really, really lovely stuff. But no.
Yeah, that's so cool. Like just even the experience of having like a specially created like music for the actual reading, the experience of that kind of
Mm.
I haven't heard of that before, and it just feels like it takes it like so much further in terms of what you feel for it. And yeah, I
Mm.
also just resonated with what you were saying about how people are writing articles and how music's subjective at the end of the day. Like that's why tastes change through time. That's why we all go to different nights. We all listen to different music. There is no, there's no like I don't think anyone can say I know music more than anyone and this is how it is, because that's not the whole point of music, is it?
Mm. Yeah, apart from the people who say that, where you understand it less.
Yeah.
Like that for me is the irony, is that I actually feel like, and I find it really interesting in Pitchfork. I mean, the Pitchfork, it kind of has that New Yorker quality where they clearly actually pay their writers properly, and
Mm,
like sometimes it's reliable. I find myself flicking through it consistently and just like, because it's just interesting to just see what they have to say. And I often just like seeing, I like seeing just now what they have to say about the new Coldplay album. Like of course it's interesting hearing them kind of reflect on something that's big and why it's big, etc. Blah blah blah. But having said that, I found it interesting that I've seen a bunch of artists throughout my life where Pitchfork despise them when they first come out, who then go on to become enormously iconic and really important, like Childish Gambino, Kid Cudi, Mac Miller. These are artists where like, and I really enjoyed those. I mean, I wasn't into Mac Miller in the early stage. I just didn't really get around to listening to him, but I loved like the first Kid Cudi album when I was young. I was a teenager, and it was like really important to me, and had a lot to say about mental health and about
mm,
like masculinity, and I really just like enjoy it. And I think like in reflection now, yeah, I think it's to speak in the language of music journalism. I think it's aged well, right? Like I think that it's fun. It's a fun thing to listen to in comparison to other kind of like emo rap now, and just there's something kind of, it's got an almost kind of Oasis quality to it in terms of like the kind of the bigness and the emotionalness and the openness of it. It's like a fun and interesting album, and yeah, I remember them just they would just talk about stuff and just say it was just like dislikable. I think they said that about the first Childish Gambino album. They said he was just profoundly unlikable,
yeah.
which is just, it's I actually just think it's almost kind of like upsetting. Like
Mm,
it's like a really when you're throwing stuff around like that and like seriously, and then putting like decimal points on the reviews and seriously putting yourself as like an expert on this stuff. Um, and then like, and God forbid you like quote a rap lyric and then write it down and quote it and then say, oh, this is a bad lyric. And it's like, come on, that's not how this works.
no.
Like, I mean, sometimes it can, and that's great. Obviously, it's really cool that like, some rap has like a literature quality to it that, it's just as good or maybe even better. Thinking of like your Kendrick Lamar's, sometimes it's even better written down than it is heard out loud. But like, obviously, that's not how all of this works. And you could pull apart so many types of art if you were to just kind of analyze it and take bits out of context and write it down and kind of like say, oh, does this sound good to you when
Yeah.
you're looking at it in the cold light of day? Like,
Yeah. I feel that. I feel that. One thing you said earlier that I thought was super cool, and I think this is something that you've incorporated in your events you've been doing recently, is you mentioned when you're talking about sit down events, you were mentioning as well people who were painting to music, and that was their form of expression rather than like, say, dancing. Like, again, something I just haven't seen before, but it sounds wicked. Like, yeah. it just kind of made me resonate with when you're, I don't know, when I'm say, if you're doing a task or you're doing something creative as well, you may listen to music to it and get a different experience to it. Then I was thinking like, yeah, sounds cool. But with your event, because I know you do have that artistic element in that form to it. How when you were planning your event, did you think about a venue to have where you could incorporate this in? Because sorry, I might not be making sense, but I'm just trying to think of the logistics of
No, that makes sense.
putting an event with music in, having space for people to express themselves through their artwork, say through painting, and then also having the right sort of capacity too. Was it a lot of hard logistic planning in there, or how did it come about?
Yeah. I mean, like it was less a matter of hard logistic planning and more a matter of alternating. I found this a lot with out of body pop, where alternating between seeing something that you think will work and just really, really pitching hard to get to that place. And then sometimes just like randomly tangentially that will connect to something that actually works way better. Or that that works really well, or like you'll put all that work in, but actually the thing that finally gets over the edge will just be pure coincidence. Like I had Kindness DJ at the most recent event, and I wrote this massive email to them talking about their political beliefs and my experiences with their music, why I really wanted them to play, but they also just happened to be in London. They live in America, but they happen to be in London at the event, so it's like this combination of those two things. And yeah, the venue for Out of Body Pop was like that, where like I was one of the people who wrote in support of Earth in Dalston, of them getting a late license, and I was in this Facebook group, coincidentally, a Facebook group for promoters, despite the fact that at that time I was not a promoter, or like I'd done like one event, and I joined a group in like university, like 5 years before this. And I just saw the Earth guy posting and being like, "Oh, thanks to everyone who supported this. Message me if you've got any progressive nightlife concepts." And at this point, I was in my bedroom, quarantined with COVID. This is after lockdown had ended, but it was like, it was that you remember we still had the COVID scares and stuff, and there was a risk that I might give it to my housemates. So I was quarantined in my bedroom and quite inebriated, actually. And I wrote out this massive, I say inebriated, I wrote out this massive email pitching the event to him. And actually, I wanted to use the theatre space, which is this massive amphitheatre they have in the venue, which would, I don't know how great that would be for art creation. I just thought it would be amazing because it's a beautiful space, and it would be really great for having like animations and stuff on screen. And because it used to be a theatre in the 1930s, it opened originally as not a theatre, as a cinema.
Yeah.
And I thought it'd be really cool to kind of use it in that way, but also have music and stuff. And I'm still planning to do that eventually, but that just began the conversation with them at Earth. And then through that, we kind of discussed what made sense. And they have this smaller venue in there called Earth Kitchen, which, like a theatre, it's a beautiful space, part of a beautiful building that they put loads of effort into. So that's, again, connects to the effort and stuff and recognition. But yeah, it just happens to be perfect for it. It's got a mezzanine area with loads of tables. It's got these gorgeous kind of like booth sofas around the dance floor. It's got loads of natural light. I mean, they don't tend to use it for day parties, but like it's like, for me, it's like the perfect one space day party space, because you've got a roof terrace for the smoking area. You've got the you've got the natural light in the main space. It's really good music. You've got a dance floor where the DJ booth is at the end of I feel like you want to be at like we want it to be a rectangle, and you're looking down the rectangle when you enter, and the DJ is at the other end. And it's got that, which I remember Benji B saying that in like a podcast, that for him, he's just like, that's like it's a really simple thing, but you want to have that. They've got that.
Yeah.
And, various other things. Yeah. So yeah, that was part of it. And just through working doing the event there, we've seen that works really well.
Yeah. It's because you earlier said that you studied philosophy, so you would have had to learn so much on the go to just put things like this together, to do the journalism aspect, to do social media aspect, to do the creation and think about all these things. How did you gain these skills? How did it come about?
Well, I mentioned earlier on that I'm dyspraxic,
Yep.
which means that my hand-eye coordination is quite poor, and it was really
Mm.
poor as a child.
Yep.
So I was never any good at sport, and I also was never any good at like playing musical instruments. Um, so like as a kid, I was really excited when it got to GCSEs, and I was not so bad at writing essays because I'd been reading the NME. And I think, yeah, a lot. My answer to your question is that I think that being hemmed in that way and not being so great with my hands, and being a little bit, I think dyspraxia, I feel like for me it puts you at a slight distance. It's almost like the opposite of ADHD, where I think with ADHD things are quite a high level of intensity, and things hit you really intensely, and sometimes that can be a positive thing because it means you can tap into space really well, but it also can be really negative. For me, I'm like, it takes me a minute to arrive somewhere, and
Mm.
I can be quite separate and analytic a lot of the time. So yeah, I think a lot of it naturally springs from that, and from the things that I've then been able to put time into, partly through an enormous amount of privilege as well, it must be said.
Yep.
But yeah, just like, reading loads of music journalism as a teenager, writing essays, getting into music, doing music journalism quite early. I started writing when I was 15. I started writing my first blog when I was 15.
Mm.
Um, and yeah, just the stuff that kind of came from there, I guess. Yeah.
That's cool. That's cool. And on that kind of like neurodiversity element, like what would you say first kind of made you think deeper about putting that sort of event on, where it could be neuro-inclusive? Were there just certain things in terms of events that just weren't satisfying you, that you kind of thought a bit more widely about? I know that overcrowding is a thing you've mentioned,
Mm.
which I think it's pretty bad in England, to be honest. I swear all the events are oversold, to be honest, and I can
Yeah, God, yeah.
imagine just for so many people, it's just not accessible. And like, there's so many elements to that overcrowding itself, which can prevent some people from just getting to enjoy music.
Yeah, I mean, and I could talk about this for ages. I think that the next thing that comes to mind to me after overcrowding is just our cultural relationship with intensity and substance abuse,
Mm,
be it alcohol or illegals, and also just like, like war, kind of like there's partying hard in terms of the music as well, right? And
mm,
I think we just have like a really strong association with like it, and association with that being like what's good. And yeah, and I feel like in lockdown, I feel like we fought a bit hard on that after lockdown as like a bit of a crutch. I feel like that the music getting harder and faster and stuff. I partly think part of that is us just naturally falling back on what we know,
yeah,
um, and then also, yeah, probably drinking a lot, and because it's easier to handle things being overcrowded and being dark and intense when you're using these substances or abusing them. So yeah, I think that's part of it too. Is it's trying to create a space which is natural, separate from that, and um, that's part of the reason why we have dancers. Is because
mm,
it's like when you take someone out of that space and put them in a Sunday day party with natural light. Often, I feel like one of the first things you feel is that, okay, well, suddenly I feel self conscious because everyone can
mm,
see me and I'm not that drunk, and and I mean, some people probably arrive and be like, "Oh, sweet, that's great, that's perfect for me." But for others, part of the reason we have dances is to help welcome people into that space and give people something to look at. You hear a lot of chat about like, I feel like I'm doing a lot of complaining and kind of criticism today, but that's just where my head's at right now.
yeah,
But this whole talk about how you shouldn't look at the DJ.
yeah,
This thing, and it surfaces every few years. This debate about like, oh, it's so sad that people don't look at the DJ. There's a part of me that's like, when I see promoters talking about this, I'm like, yeah, of course that would be great, but like there are loads of reasons why things are that way right now. Part of it is just boiler room and keep hush, and just like that we're so used to seeing clips of DJs, right? So it's just like naturally, it's intuitive when you get to the event that you look at the DJ.
yeah,
And then part of it is just we're a slightly nervous generation. We're used to having cameras in our faces, and we're used to having to present ourselves, and we're quite a self-conscious generation, I'd say. And and so yeah, and British people can be kind of awkward anyway. So yeah, sometimes it's not really that easy to just be on the dance floor and just be dancing like looking at your friends. Sometimes you do kind of want to like I remember I was chatting with this music journalist called Chow Ravens. She does an amazing dance music podcast called No Tags. It's not just about dance music, but that's like,
Yeah.
if you're a dance music nerd, then particularly you should check it out. But I remember talking to her at a cause event, and you know the thing with sunglasses. She was just like, yeah, why wouldn't you want to wear sunglasses in the dance floor? Sometimes you don't want to be just be making like eye contact with the randoms all the time. Like it's nice to just be kind of like in your own zone. And yeah, I don't know. Yeah, it's just it is a thing to like contend with. It's like, look, this is where we're at right now. We've got a bunch of people who go to a rave and want to either have something to look at or for it to be really dark so that you're not really being looked at yourself. If you're not going to do a really dark, low ceiling kind of rave space, then let's do something. You know, then what are you going to do otherwise? Don't just like put on a normal club event and get annoyed at people for getting their phones out and watching the DJ. Like maybe give them something to look at.
Yeah.
You know, yeah, what I would give for like a tasteful London super club with massive screens. I mean, I guess that basically was Printworks,
That
but
what?
I don't
Yeah.
think Printworks was very good. Uh, you know, when I was at university in Bristol, we went to a club called Motion, which had a lot of ups and downs, but I had a lot of fun there. You know, like
Yeah.
and you know, at a basic level, it was a big wide dance floor where you know you were. It didn't feel like it was that hard to find a space to dance. You weren't kind of either in the middle with the good visuals, but a bit cramped, or at the side without the visuals with space to dance, like which I felt like was a lot of what I experienced at Printworks.
Yeah. No, it's no, definitely it's yeah, I had my gripes with Printworks as well, to be honest. My number one being it goes for every club. I think the sound should sound brilliant no matter where you are, because
God,
because
yeah, yeah,
it
yeah.
just helps with so much. It helps with better space around because you can hear the music perfectly. Because
Mhm.
if the music's perfect, I like to stand at the back. To be honest, I don't really need to look at the
Absolutely.
DJ. I like just having
Yeah, I
space, and
love
I don't
that.
like being too close to people. But yeah, I could. That's another thing I could talk on about for so
Yeah.
long. But with that in mind, how do you assess like the capacity to of people to have at your event, given that you don't want to kind of it sounds like you don't want to fall into the same dynamics that other events do, where it's
Mm.
shoulder to shoulder.
Yeah, and you know, and we really are promising people no overcrowding, and
Mm.
like you know, it's really you have to go to quite drastic measures to like be sure that that's not going to happen. In my case, we just simply do not sell to capacity. We sell
Mm.
like you know, notably under capacity. Um, like to like 80% capacity, and this is over the course of a day party as well, where like it's not all about one headliner. Like, often the overcrowding comes when everyone's trying to get that 1 a.m. DJ. You know, everyone wants to
Yeah.
see like you know the biggest number of the thing, and so at that point it's all really really cramped, and we don't have that flow. But we also are just not selling to capacity, which is, I mean, take like Fabric. I've been to Fabric 2 nights in a row or 2 weeks in a row where you could just see the numbers on Resident Advisor, the kind of the attending, or rather interested as they call it, which the number goes up when you sell a ticket. And I could just see on the numbers that one night I was going to was like half the next one. So they were like, yeah, like, you know, well under capacity. And oh my God, the one under capacity was so good. It was a deep medi event. It was so fun. And the next one was at capacity, and it was unbearable. And every space was too crowded. Like it wasn't just about the flow of the seeing headliner; like it was just unavoidable. And I remember seeing seeing a journalist I like, talking about that event, about how much they enjoyed it, and I was just like, but like how?
Yeah.
I don't understand how. Like, what was going on? Did you just manage to wedge yourself in at the front, and then to the point where people couldn't push their way through to the space where you were, where there was space, so you're protected? Did you get a couple of your tall mates to stand behind you? Like,
Yeah.
I don't
It's
know, man. Seriously, like, I don't understand. Or are you just doing the thing that annoys me most is when people are just like hanging out in the kind of VIP space, and you know, you've got people, you know, being like, oh wow, it was so good. And it was like, yeah, for you, of course it was really good for you, but you're not facilitating the experience for the people. You know, like yeah,
yeah.
it really genuinely upsets me, particularly in the context of post lockdown, where like, you know, music is, you know, like I personally was dreaming so much about it, how it would be after it was over.
Yeah.
Um, I really feel like there's a certain degree of duty, particularly if you're a person of privilege who like you've already got like a day job and you're organizing these events as a kind of like a separate thing, as like for a bit of fun. And I think the thing of promoters just putting on events so that they can kind of have a DJ they like on and kind of like have their own little sesh and like have access to the green
Mm.
room and say that they got to met like this person like it's annoying. It's really annoying to me if you're doing that and not actually facilitating like a safe and comfortable environment via dancers.
Yeah, because that's the thing, where like sometimes you go to an event and someone might even say things like, yeah, people are in the way, people are taking up space. It's like, well, the promoters, if I know it's not so simple because cost of living, ticket sales, clubs aren't doing so well, events aren't doing so well at the moment. So it's a really hard balance. But sometimes there are things that can be done to facilitate. Like, to be honest, I
Mm.
really wish here, like, I always find, like, whenever I go to places in Berlin, like, Space to Dance is so much better there, or just
Yeah.
etiquette. I wish that we had things here like community fund where maybe you can pay a bit extra if you want, or maybe that could also help people who can't afford the means to go. Something a bit different that could maybe help with these issues of overcrowding and that, because
Mm.
I do really feel it. Like, I know it's, they're trying to sell as many tickets as possible because, yeah, no one wants the prices to go up with raves, but at the same time, it's like, yeah, well, that's a whole different separate issue. I could just go on and
Mm.
on about.
I also think the problem is also it's like yeah you want to sell loads of tickets but it's not thinking long term. You're not thinking about the
Yeah,
sustainability of the full scene when you're creating events that are unsafe and that it takes a particular type of person to enjoy. Like all this stuff of like, oh, Gen Z aren't going out as much anymore. Like, like it melts my brain that more people aren't looking at the thing, which for me is obvious. Is it's yeah because the events haven't evolved to people's new emotional needs. I mean
yeah,
that for me is like so much of the point of out of body pop.
mm,
Um, Not that neurodiversity is a new thing, but I mean for a lot of people, awareness of it is, and awareness of it themselves and awareness of their own needs is. So maybe it's not so much it's not everyone's new needs for a lot of people. It's needs they didn't realize they had, or maybe needs that became more intense. I also think often neurodiverse people they're like canaries, in the mines for issues that everyone's got. I mean, like I don't think that, like I say, I mean, my dyspraxia doesn't actually mean it doesn't stop me from like being able to navigate a space. I'm not experiencing like intense physical discomfort, right, as a
mm,
result of these things. But yeah, I feel like yeah, these are problems for everyone,
yeah,
and I think that lockdown and stuff and social media and anxiety and just the London being intense and all that stuff, like these all contributes in it. And yeah, ideally, if we could create some kind of build back some trust in these venues, that's
yeah,
ideally what I'd like to see. Is that to the point where you're seeing more events selling out that aren't relying on massive, insane lineups. I mean, that's part of the reason why sometimes it's that people are going to the DJ rather than going for the club.
yeah,
It's like ideally, it's like the venue. You should just be able to rely on knowing that it's going to be a nice place to be, and actually, if you develop that, and some of that's really simple stuff, which that's built on, such as not overcrowding, then you don't need to, shell out 10K for
ex-
a bunch of massive headliners.
exactly. That's kind of for me. That's where Unfold nails it. You don't know the lineup until you're in. People still
Mm.
go because it works, because it's nice, because
They're
it's
a
not.
perfect example of that. Yeah,
Yeah,
that's exactly what I'm talking about. They have trust, and it's a Sunday day party. I mean, like
yeah,
talk about trust. Like literally, like people are just like, yeah, and it's not often overcrowded, but people rely on it. People just know, and it's that like that consistency. That what we're trying to build towards with Out of Body Pop 2 is the point where we can do it consistently enough where it's not all about going to one particular thing. It's just a thing that you know reliably. If you know that you could do with a dance,
yeah.
you've got this thing coming up. And I'd love for there to be. I can't see Out of Body Pop being more than once a month, but I'd love for there to be a whole ecosystem
Mm.
of other kind of like spaces that you can rely on going on in the city like that. That's the dream. That's what I'm hoping to build towards.
That absolutely. So we've talked about, like, mental health a lot, and I wanted to just I think you've pretty much answered it, to be honest, with like your explanation of how your event works. But if you were to sum up how mental health is incorporated into your events, how what would you say?
I mean, really, mental health is before I knew that I was neurodiverse, I knew that I was having difficulties with mental health. And like really mental health has been the whole everything about out of body pop
Hmm.
is looking at mental health, even down to like, even in like slightly abstract senses, in that for me, the music that I'm inspired by, the music of out of body pop. I mean, thinking of, for example, Kindness, the music that they make. For me, that music has mental health implications because it there's an element of introspection in it. It's partly just about emotions and
Hmm.
reflecting on emotions, and I think it facilitates that. I think that process is beneficial to mental health. But yeah, but then yeah, then all of the other stuff, the trying to not be overcrowding, do it on a Sunday, having re-entry, having interactive arts, having live dancers, um, doing it in a community sense, and really and trying to have like a whole crew of painters and dancers and musicians who we know, so that you've got safe, reliable people there who can kind of help create that kind of organic vibe. All of that is mental health is like the benchmark that everything's always been compared against for me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Nice. Nice. And
My slightly intense answer to
no,
your very nice
no,
question.
no. Again, you nailed it. You nailed it. And I guess like with regards, kind of like a bit of a different angle here. So you've talked about the event you're putting on and your journey there, but also your job you do as well in life. How do you find the balance between doing both of them at the same time, and what's the impact on your mental health?
Yeah, it's really hard. It is really hard. I mean, like I say, my current job is a 4-day working week,
Mm.
so it's a lot easier than it would be otherwise. Having said that, it still is hard work, and it is still like sometimes you get to the end of your
Mm.
4-day week. I mean, please don't shoot me for saying this 5-day week crew, but like
Yeah.
you get to the end of the 4-day week, and sometimes you don't want to work afterwards because you've really been in it, and we go to the office like we are actually working in person. And sometimes when you finally you're back in your space, like you just want to chill out and zone out. And yeah, it sometimes takes a bit of a push um, for me to continue. And I basically just use my Fridays consistently. I always use my Fridays to out of body pop work, and,
Mm.
I'm doing out of body pop stuff around the rest of my job as well. Like I'm in the last week or so, I've got into getting up at like 6:30, so I can do a little bit of out of body pop stuff before going to work and have that out of the way and kind of cleared from my head. Um, and stuff. Yeah, it affects my mental health. It's difficult, it's work and it's difficult. But I think that the thing that keeps me going is that, and there's a sense in which this is kind of also letting of myself off the hook for other things, is that I do really know that I'm doing out of body pop because I believe that it can help people.
Yeah.
Um, it's my therapist was talking to me about this, about how, because I mean, I can have selfish impulses, and I can be selfish in my life, and I can get annoyed about things in really selfish ways. And he was talking to me, and he was saying, look, let's just try and use out of body pop as a basis where, and as an example which you can then apply in others of life, of just being like, look, this is not about recognition, this is just about you trying to do something and be the force behind something positive. um and I think doing that, I think serving people, once you start to actually feel that happening, that is definitely good for mental health. And ideally, like my goal is that's a thing that I can then feel throughout my life, because it feels good. It feels good to do stuff for other people. It's fun. It's nice, like serving food, serving,
Mm.
giving massages to your partner
Yeah.
after a long day of work. Like these things, like they feel nice. And it's sort of things I feel like it's so easy to forget in this neo-capitalist insanity that is modern life. But it's so easy for me. I think I forget about it on a daily basis. But to forget that, to just not think about yourself too much and try and just like listen to what's around you and think about how you can contribute to that. Um, yeah, I think that's a lot of what it's about for me, is trying to think about that.
No, but I love that because it clearly shows that your event you're throwing now and the projects you've done in the past, it's purely out of good intentions. How can you help people? What can you change? Like you were searching for something, like you wanted kind of things in the industry to be a bit different, so you created it yourself. And that's like it's the right way to do it. It's the right way to do it. So like good on you. You're doing something clearly with the object to help people, and I think that's like that's when like you're producing art in its most beautiful, purest form there.
Oh, that's sweet of you to say. Yeah, I mean, and I mean, like I said, I mean, I can't say that I am a selfless person. Like, of course, part of it is, it's there are aspects of it that are fun for me, but
Yeah,
I have found that there is the sense in which it's selfless is that it's bloody hard work, and a lot of the
yeah.
work is not fun.
No,
like that's the brutal reality, I think, with trying to. There is a part of me that really wants to just have a normal life and just do my job and just switch off when the job's off. I'm sure that you feel the same way.
yeah,
I recently saw a friend of mine who's a DJ. He was posting about this and just saying that he was just going to have like a break from doing his like promoting events for a bit, because he was like he just wants to just focus on his career and just like be like a normal person. And it's so tempting. It really is so tempting, but it's almost like that discomfort is almost like a sign. It's like, hey, well, there you go. That's a sign you're onto something. That this
yeah.
actually isn't just about you. It's not just you seeing the chocolate cake and wanting to eat it. Like there's there's a value behind it that's pushing you to do this.
Definitely.
Although I'm sure that's not the case for everyone. And sometimes, if you really want a break, you just have a fucking break. you know.
Yeah, no, I feel this. I've got two final questions for you before we wrap. First one is, what do you think success looks like? I've actually lifted this question from another podcast, DJ called Jack Workforce. He used to be one half of Spectrasol. He did a little podcast over
Mm.
lockdown. I used to love that podcast. Actually, one of my inspirations for starting my own. But he asked that question, like, what do you think success looks like? And yeah, answer that question however you want, mate.
Can I ask you what it looks like for you? Is that okay?
Yeah, definitely. So I was thinking about this like for quite a while recently. Like, what is it I want out of the podcast? Where will it go? And I had a moment like not long ago where I interviewed a certain guest who was just absolutely amazing. And after that interview, I just felt so happy, so giddy. The next day I was at work, I couldn't even like think. I was just so excited. I wanted to create more. And then it kind of hit me. It's like,
Mm.
I didn't care about how many people actually listened to that. I was so happy I did it and the experience I had from it that I just wanted to make sure that that's how it's going with more of my guests. And I just hit that
Mm.
point where I was like, this is just so enjoyable. I feel the success to me is feeling kind of just happy with what I'm doing, happy in the moment with that, if that makes sense.
Mm. And what was it about that? If you could try and put your pin on it, what was it that? What do you think it was in that interview that made you feel so happy?
I think it's someone I really admire, but also they pushed me to do the interview in a bit of a different way to what my normal format is,
Mm.
which I'm really thankful for. And I thought they brought the best out of me too. I think it was just
Mm.
like also after they just spent some time talking to me about it, gave me a lot of good feedback, things that are going well and what I'm doing. It gave such nice perspective, and I don't know, they just put a lot of nice reason to it for me, and I just never thought about things in that way. I was just like, it just after I just felt like, oh, this is going really well. It is just to to reach that point where you don't care about if you're making money from something or if you who's listening to it, because I don't make any money
Mm.
from this, to be honest. I do it for the love, but it was just a nice
Oh
place
yeah,
to be.
same.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean it's funny. It's nice for me and refreshing for me hearing that, because, like I said, I'm at like a very different stage of this project to where you are with your podcast. Where right now I've been through that stage that you're talking about.
Mm.
The first time I did an Out of Body Pop an event called Out of Body Pop, which, bearing in mind, that was like years after the first event that I organised in lockdown, and years after the deep cut thing. That first event, I think that was like that similar moment that you're talking about, of me just being just like really firing all the neurons
Mm.
firing, and me being like, wow, oh my god, this is, I'm really collaborating, and like the joy of it. And yeah, I think that's that's one kind of success, and that is like that's essential. And and I'd say if that doesn't happen at some point, then I would be very skeptical of any project. I think that you need that, I think, for success. But I'm at a different point of the project now, where now it's, I've recently achieved a totally different type of success, which is getting like media coverage and having it's stuff that's like more objective and like on paper of stuff like these kind of like metrics of success, and it's like they're so much less satisfying than what you're talking about. Like I think that it's and yeah like and the thing is, those things, like I said, for me those things are then attached to what my goals are for this project, in that I want to, I guess, the thing that was really pure in this thing, and I'm still processing this because I still haven't got as much feedback as I'd like, but I feel like I have actually had people come to my events who would struggle at other events and who haven't had enjoyed them. I've had people with cerebral palsy, people who with long COVID, people with we had like an autistic first date at our most recent event, where both they wanted somewhere that was neuro-inclusive, and so that stuff, of course, that stuff for me is that's a kind of success too, and that's the thing which I'm really reaching for. But I want to have it. Maybe it's too much, but I want to have it both, and that's the thing I'm reaching towards. And I think it's just, I think that's going to take me a minute. In all honesty, I think it's going to take me a minute to be able to kind of relax into the flow state of it, whilst also kind of being satisfied. Because I had those moments of creativity. I did a DJ set at this most recent event where I had a live vocalist freestyling over the DJ set, and it was amazing. It was so fun, and I definitely, while I was DJing it was really exciting. But I still feel like I was kind of partly going off adrenaline at that point too. And I'm looking forward to being slightly more relaxed. I think that's the goal, is to be kind of like in that flow state.
It comes with time. It comes with time. It's
absolutely
so the other question I wanted to ask was, if you could give yourself any advice when you're starting all these creative projects, what advice would it be?
Gosh. It's such a classic question, but I've never thought about that. Like so much of the advice I'd want to give back to myself is like, be like, like being wary of certain people and keeping an eye out for things. But no, I think be kind to yourself. The thing is, it's just been such like a bizarre and strange journey. My creative life, the last 8 years of trying to make it in the world as a creative person outside of university, well, at least outside of undergrad, it's been so I don't even know how I would even give direction to make it better if I could have. I mean, I like, so basic, it's such a simple thing, but I guess just try and worry less. Try and like, I think that there was a bit of advice I once saw, which is it's a picture. It's just like a picture of a graph of how like the graph is. It's like a line graph, and it's just like gradually sweeping upwards, and it's like almost horizontal for ages, and then it gradually up keeps. And it's how, and I remember that this social media post saying that, just remember that like you have to do all this stuff of it being like flat, or basically flat, feeling like it's plateauing before it finally picks up. And I feel like I've gone through so many stages of that, where it then picks up, but then it picks up, and then it's like, oh, actually, no, there's still loads of stuff that you still got to do before it picks up again. Like it's like that. So yeah, just have faith that as long as you're true to yourself, as long as you're true to yourself, and as long as you collaborate with people, and and like listen to other people, then it'll be okay. As long as it's not just about yourself. I think it can't just be about yourself. And I guess that there were some of my earlier creative projects were a bit more misguided, because I think I was a little bit more. But I had to do that stuff anyway. I think that stuff you had to get. I had to,
and it's all your experience.
Start somewhere.
It's what you learn from. It's what shapes you to get to this place.
Yeah.
it's just how it is, to be honest. There's no like perfect guidebook on how to nail it from day one, really, is there? It's yeah, you got to go through it to feel it and experience and then learn from it. But no, I think on that note, that's like a nice place to end. Really enjoyed interviewing you. This has been a lot of fun. Thank you so much for coming on. And before we like stop the recording, is there anything you want to shout out, or yeah, just shout out your stuff? Like, where can we find you on social media? Where can we find out more?
Thank you. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, yeah. My name is Will Sower. That's Will and Soer. That's my name on Instagram, and yeah, Out of Body Pop on Instagram as well. Yeah, if you look up those things, and yeah, someone thing I want to shout out just in terms of something that's really high quality that I think more people should check out. There's yeah, this I'd say look up Emma Garland Substack. She's a journalist. She's really good, and she's doing her own thing right now. I'd really recommend checking it out. Yeah, music nerd. If you're a electronic music nerd, check out No Tags podcast. I really
Mm.
heavily recommend that. And just coming off the top of my head, there's a singer called 1010 Benja.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like more people should listen to his music. He's amazing. Yeah, really beautiful, and yeah, peak out of body pop. I'd say definitely go and have a listen to his music. And he's got an album out which I like, but I'd actually say go and listen to like the original singles and stuff as an entry point before you try and listen to the album. I would say scroll down that Spotify or Apple Music profile and you listen to Boo Venus, his first single, and just go from there because it's yeah, really amazing music.
Nice,
Oh,
nice.
Merkish Dave. Oh my God, Merkish Dave. Um, no, yeah. Fuck all that other stuff. I mean, they're all great as well. But yeah, go listen to Merkish Dave if you haven't. Seriously, I like, yeah, the most recent album is crazy. The City Needs a Hero by Merkish Dave. Go listen to it. Particularly the song Us Lot. If you're going to listen to, if you take nothing else away from this, listen to the song Us Lot by Merkish Dave. Yeah.
Lo- Love it, love it. Well, thank you so much. It was great having you on.